Hello, this is Tim Treelaw, and you're listening to the Sirens of Audio.
Me one. First Aussie bogan Doctor Who. It's an honour to be able to speak to you. Great to talk to you, me too. Well, I've been doing my best to recreate your character, but I just feel so guilty. Oh, why's that, old cobber? Well, I want to be you, but I just don't want to be an imitation of you. I want to add my own unique portrayal of your character, but I still want to have the deepest respect for what you've achieved in the past. Nothing wrong with that, mate. It's just that the fans, they get so upset with me. They only want you, me one. Well, I have been dead for 40 years, me too. How do they expect me to come back to the role? I don't know. They just do. I don't know what I have to do to be accepted by the fans. Well, are you getting the essence of my original performance? Yes. Are the stories good? They're excellent stories. Do they have the best standards of production they can have? Of course. The company gets an Audie Award every year. Then that's all you need, me too. Let the grumbly fans grumble and just ignore them. Just go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I'm not mistaken in mine. See you, me too. See you, me old cobber. G'day audiophiles, this is the Sirens of Audio, the show that seeks to explore the universes of Doctor Who in the audio medium. My name is Dwayne.
And my name is Philip. G'day Dwayne, g'day audiophiles.
Sorry Philip, it was a bit dramatic, was it?
Oh, it was excellent. I mean, I love a bit of drama in the evening.
We got to have a bit of drama, don't we?
We do.
So today we've got a great show lined up. We're going to be speaking with producer, writer, actor Mark Wright later on in the show. So it's going to be great to talk about him, and it's going to be... have you had a chance to hear The Outlaws yet?
No, I haven't. So I'm looking forward to it. I've downloaded it, but I haven't listened to it yet. Yeah,
I'm gonna share a few of my thoughts on that box set, which was just released last week. And I've got some very, very good things to say about it. I'm very, very pleased with it. And did you say you got some Stranded you want to talk about?
Yeah, I listened to Stranded, so it was a toss-up which one to listen to first. Yep, and I just wanted to finish off Stranded and see how it finished.
Well, we'll get some comments from you on Stranded as well. But before we do that, Philip, you know
yes. What should we do first?
I see a rabbit hole. Well, here we go. Okay, Philip, this rabbit hole is going to be a little bit different because I'm going to hand it over to our viewers and listeners to get their feedback on this thought, because what happened this week, Philip, was I was listening to a podcast I like to listen to. I'll say who it is, Joe Rogan. I listen to a few Joe Rogans from time to time. And his podcast, he drops a few episodes a week, and they usually go between 2 and 3 hours long. So needless to say, I don't listen to every single episode. Not that I'm interested in every guest that he has on anyway, but when a name does come up, I still find it difficult because it's usually a 3-hour conversation that he has on his podcast. How do you go, Philip, with longer podcasts and keeping up with what you actually want to keep up with?
Well, firstly, I play all podcasts on a minimum of 1.5 speed.
Minimum. Ooh,
minimum
that's
1.5 speed. If I'm out, I listen to most podcasts probably when I'm out walking or in the car. So I do probably 1.5. If I'm sitting down and really concentrate, I can go for 2. But I can't do anything else at the same time because it just goes a bit too fast for my brain. I guess what I do is I actually work out which podcasts I'm prepared to listen to, and sometimes I just discount some. But I jump through things too. There's particular segments I know that I'm not that interested in. I'll jump past a section. But what I want to listen to, I listen to. I put a lot of stuff on, a bit of stuff when I go to bed. So I've got it in my ears when I go to bed. And usually, I just get through a podcast before I drop off. So that's some of the things I do. But I don't care about length if it's good quality.
Okay, excellent. Which is why the science of audio is so good. Because although we have these great ambitious plans to keep our episodes short, we more often than not, in fact, always, particularly with guests who are enjoying chatting with us, it's hard to stop them. I mean, it's not that it's hard to stop them. We don't want to stop them, do we? Because they are fascinating to listen to. And sometimes they go on for a lot longer than we expect.
I get surprised often how they often warm up and they're enjoying themselves. And one of the things that we try and do is we try and stay out of their way. Part of our philosophy in terms of interviewing is we try to talk as little as necessary, just enough to steer in a particular direction, and then we try and just let them go for it. But by doing that, it does often mean it's long, and I mean there is stuff that we cut, and there's lots of stuff that you guys don't always hear. Some of it's quite funny and amusing, and some of it's spoilerful, and there's all different things that we decide not to put out to you. But we just like to, let them go for it.
Yeah. So that's my question to you, our audience. What are your thoughts on that? If we have a longer episode, how do you like to digest it? Are you happy with the way we drop them all in one go, or would you prefer an episode to be split over 2 parts? We both have been considering doing that lately, Philip, haven't we? But I have noticed in the past that when we've split the episodes, the second episode doesn't seem to get as many listens for a while, or it takes a while to catch up. So I don't know whether people are seeing the name of the person and going, I've already heard that, and then moving on, or what. But that's my question. So drop us a comment, send us an email.
It is interesting with Gary Russell's 3, because we split Gary into 3 because it was a very long talk with him. And his number 3 is still the most listened to episode. And his number 1 is the least listened. So I don't know why people...
Is that because of the clickbaity title that I gave it?
I don't know.
I think I gave it the title, I Want Chris Chibnall's Job, in quotes.
That's right. Maybe that made the difference.
That was possibly something to do with it. And I made a specific effort with those episodes to make sure they were titled differently, because I noticed with some earlier ones, I called it Part 1 and Part 2, and the Part 2 just really lagged behind. So that's why I'm throwing it over to you guys. Tell us what you want. Send us an email, drop us a comment in YouTube. How do you like to get your episodes? Do you want the subject over and done in one episode, or would you prefer it split maybe over 2 episodes in a week? Because that's our other dilemma too, is that we have so many in the can that if we split things up and drop them more slowly, we're going to have a year's worth of stuff before we know it, and we've still got new people coming in and talking to us. So that's also an issue, is we want to get them out there because we've always got new material coming in.
Yeah, it's so hard because with all these people that we're trying to put out to you, because we've had all these amazing guests on.
Yeah, it's thrilling for us, and hopefully it's equally as thrilling for you to be able to get access to these creatives for free, mind you. Free, Philip. Let's keep that in mind. Okay, so we'll throw that out to you and we'll jump out of the rabbit hole. Let's go! And we'll talk for a moment about these releases that you and I have been listening to over the last couple of weeks. I'll save the Outlaws for just a second, but tell us, Philip, what are your thoughts on the Stranded box set? We won't go too in-depth because we want to get into our chat with Mark, but what are your overall impressions on the last box set of the Stranded series? Yeah,
can I say I've really enjoyed where Stranded grew to. The first box set, the first 2, I didn't feel that impressed by, but seeing particularly box set 3, a lot of things improved, and this 4th box set has wrapped things up really well. So I'm at the point now where I want to go back and listen to all 4 box sets in a row. It's got the cream of the cream in terms of story writing. Matt Fitton does an amazing first story. Really sort of all... Actually, you'd probably like it. You're going to like it because it's a bit timey-wimey. It's a bit Sapphire and Steely in terms of crossing timelines and dealing with those sort of issues. Lisa McMullen has done a wonderful story. I guess it's not a spoiler. Maybe it's a spoiler. If they kill off Andy in box set 3, but because of things that happen in box set 1, they work out they can rescue him. It's called Get Andy. So if you look at the box set, you're going to see it's going to be pretty obvious that he's on the front cover, that Andy's in box set 4. So it's an interesting story in terms of rescuing Andy. It's bits of it are very funny, but the bits of it are quite poignant. The Keys of Baker Street by Rory Gill kind of wraps up the whole thing, which is Well, it's a bit strange because I thought we got to the end, episode 3 in the box set, and the whole Stranded series is really wrapped up and finished. And so I was thinking, well, what on earth is John Dorney going to do with the last story? And of course, those of you who know the Stranded storyline, it's all about the Doctor being stranded on Earth for 1 year in 2020. And so when they first recorded the first box set, it was 1919, and things in life were pretty normal.
1919, that was a long time ago.
Sorry, 2019.
We know what you meant, Philip. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I don't make fun of me. So in 2019, the world was a different place to what happened in 2020, as you'd probably know. And you've got this whole box set, 4 box sets of 4 stories each, set in 2020, but there's no pandemic. And what they've done in this last box set is they've actually explained why there's no pandemic, but then the last story, John Dorney, resets 2020. And it's the first story I think I've heard, first drama, set during the pandemic, and actually explores a year. So it actually explores the whole year of 2020 through the eyes of the various characters that we've grown to know and love and care about, all in Baker Street through the pandemic. The mask wearing, the lockdowns, the banging the pans on the street, but also the grief of losing people you love, and etc. So John Dorney's done an amazing emotional story. It doesn't quite feel Doctor Who, because I'm trying to think, is there any big sci-fi threat? I'm not sure. It's timey because it's a reset, but it really is just an exploration of these characters that we've come to know over 16 stories and how they survived the beginning of the pandemic. It's a fascinating piece. I think you're going to enjoy it, but it's very slow paced is the right word. I don't know how you describe it, but it's not a Doctor Who adventure. It's an examination of life. It's very powerful. I really enjoyed it. So it's an amazing wrap up. So yeah, I think you're going to enjoy it. That's Stranded 3.
Excellent. Stranded 4.
Sorry, Stranded 4. Oh, I'm having a bad go on. Hi, Dwayne. Thank you.
From Big Finish Productions, Doctor Who, The Eighth Doctor Adventures, Stranded 4.
Andy, we couldn't reach him in time.
Everyone died. The whole human race.
No, that's what you went there to stop.
Robin, he did this. I did this. I need to find him. Fix things.
We need to get off the ship. It's about to crash into that space station. Now is not the time to nip to the loo.
He's a curator. Helen saw him a few more times than me. He's a very strange man.
If the Doctor can't find a way to stop this...
Come out! Come out! Wherever you are, 10 seconds until impact.
Everything will end. All creation will blink from existence.
That thing wants to eat my soul.
Yeah, but don't panic.
Why aren't we panicking?
Because they only hunt at the dark.
Oh.
It is dark!
Big Finish, for the love of stories.
You've reached the voicemail of the Doctor. Sorry I can't take your call, but I'm probably out saving the universe. Please leave a message after the tone.
Now tell us about the new First Doctor adventures, because I've been looking forward to these.
Okay, yeah, so I was tossing up too, because Stranded came out only a few days before that, or the week before that, so I hadn't got to Stranded yet. And I was very keen after... I was too very keen to get to Stranded 4 after Stranded 3. I enjoyed that so much. But I wanted to give this one a go because I know we chatted with Mark Wright and I knew what his feelings were on putting this together as producer, so I wanted to get into that first and foremost. And I made the mistake, Philip, of going online and looking at a few reviews and, you know, you've got the old negative Nancy's on recasting. I think it's an old argument now. Like, if you don't like recasting, just get over it, move on. It's the only way we can get stories with these characters at the moment. And, well, not at the moment, I think ever. And they are amazing stories. Nicholas Briggs, if I saw him directing and I thought, yes, this is fantastic. He's going to be very interested in recreating the tone of that era. Stephen Noonan as the Doctor he reminds me a lot of John Coleshaw, because you remember, Philip, we were speaking with John Coleshaw and he has such a passion for Doctor Who that it comes out even when he's talking normally. He loves Doctor Who that much. And Stephen Noonan is the same, I feel. So he's putting that love of Doctor Who, that passion into his performance. And he's concentrating on getting the nuances of William Hartnell as the First Doctor, and you sort of get an understanding of what he's trying to do more when you listen to the extras. And he referred to an interview that William Hartnell did for Desert Island Discs years ago, and I'd never heard that before, and because Stephen Noonan said he doesn't sound anything like the Doctor in that interview, I went, oh, okay. I went and looked it up and had a listen to it, and he was absolutely right. And the Doctor is actually a performance from start to finish as far as William Hartnell's concerned. It is a performance. And so, whereas you think about the Fourth Doctor, that's Tom Baker. The Third Doctor, well, that's John Pertwee as himself. Tom Baker as himself. It's not a performance as much as those first two Doctors in particular, but we're focusing on William Hartnell here. And Stephen Noonan has such care and love for that era. The stories had me smiling from start to finish. I was getting all these nostalgic feels. I've always claimed that William Hartnell was my favourite Doctor for a long time. I'm not so sure anymore, since we've had Doctors like Peter Capaldi, Christopher Eccleston. But Hartnell always was, during the classic, when there was only the classic era, was always my favourite Doctor. And Elizabeth Miles has done an amazing script as far as the Outlaws go. It's a little bit of a comedy. It's not full-on comedy like the Mythmakers, perhaps, but maybe more along the lines of the Gunfighters.
Okay, great.
And yeah, Lauren Cornelius as Dodo is fantastic, and the attention to detail, some of the music that's in there. Toby Robinson has done some of the Tristram Carey stings, and I'm a huge Tristram Carey fan.
Yeah, I know.
Anytime I hear those stings in a Doctor Who play on Big Finish, it almost sends shivers up my spine. So that one was fantastic. Annette Badland, we've had a bit of Annette Badland fever over the last couple of months. She's been in at least 3 stories in the last 2 months that I can think of. Blood of the Time Lords, I think she was... and she was in this as well. I think she was in something else too, but I can't think what it was off the top of my head. She's amazing in The Miniaturist. There was a lot of talk that perhaps The Miniaturist was the Celestial Toy Maker. It's got the meddling monk in it too. Rufus Hound is in the Outlaws. So that wasn't as much attention to Rufus Hound on that. He's there in the cast list, so you know he's there from the start. So that was good to see. A little bit of a sort of a sequel to the Time Meddler, which is one of my all-time favourite classic serials.
Yeah, it's great.
And it's really, really good. I can see where people criticise the voice, but I think Nick Briggs put it perfectly in the extras, and that's why you've got to give the extras a listen to get their reasoning and get why they do what they do. Because Nick said that Stephen Noonan is like playing the music of the First Doctor, but on a different instrument. So you're getting all those tones, those intonations. He's even putting in fluffs like Hartnell did, and after talking with Peter Purvis, I suspect that a lot of those fluffs were actually intentional.
Yep. If you listen to the Massacre of Bartholomew's Eve and you hear William Hartnell playing a different character, word perfect, and he's stunning, I think a lot of those fluffs are deliberately put in.
Yeah. If one little criticism, they perhaps go a little bit over the top on the fluffs in one of the episodes. I think the final episode of The Outlaws, but it doesn't detract for me from the rest of the story. And overall, the whole box set is just a nostalgia fest. It's absolutely beautiful, and I cannot wait for more from this TARDIS team.
Okay, well, I'm starting that tomorrow. I'll let you know what I think.
Excellent. All right, shall we throw in a trailer for that story?
That's a great idea.
Because we're gonna talk to Mark, who produced that story, in just a moment. So let's throw in a trailer for Doctor Who: The Outlaws, and we'll be back with Mark in just a moment.
From Big Finish Productions, The First Doctor Adventures, The Outlaws.
You didn't happen to catch sight of a white-haired old coot, did you?
As a matter of fact, we did.
You were not here when I was last forced to defend these walls. That lasted only 40 days, and yet still it tested the fortitude of every man and woman here.
The French archers have loosed their arrows!
Then the attack has begun!
Quickly! We haven't much time! It won't be long before Louis' soldiers scale the walls!
So, gentle knight, what have you to show me?
A secret.
Well, this is my ward, Lady Dorothea...
Dodo.
Oh, yes, of course, my dear. Lady Dodo Chaplet.
And this is the doctor.
Hello? Yes, I'm here. Do stop bellowing. What is it?
Oh, no. Doctor,
Yes, child.
Oh, who would do such a thing?
Outlaws, my dear. Outlaws. The brutish reality of history, my dear.
Oh, that was a truly disgusting clown.
It's not all dressing up, you know.
Pity we had to clamber up the privy chute.
I suggest we release these poor animals and leave before the outlaws return.
I am William of Berkshire, and you are trespassing in my forest.
Who?
William of Berkshire. Surely you've heard of me.
No, I can't say that I have. And relax that bowstring, sir. You'll have somebody's eye out with that arrow.
Oh, delightful. The doctor's here, that's what matters. And I've had plenty of time to contemplate my revenge.
You perfidious meddler! What are you doing here? What are you, planning? And where is Dodo?
Now, that's more like it. I'm sure we're going to have a chance to catch up, but right now, I'd better get going.
The young woman you travel with spoke against our anointed king.
She was confused. She didn't know what year it was.
Is she often so confused?
What have you done with my ship?
Nothing, except keep it safe.
Those French dogs are going to swarm into Lincoln, and I've no way to stop them.
Oh, no! Doctor! Look!
The French have breached the city walls.
We're all going to die!
The doctor, my lady.
What is the meaning of this? One moment I'm a guest, then a prisoner, then a guest again, and now I'm being dragged around the castle by these ruffians of yours.
With good reason.
As I recall, you wanted to see King William, the Conqueror, defeated at Hastings in 1066.
Yes, I did.
The miniaturist.
Hello? I know you.
Daddy?
How did you get here? You can't be...
Daddy.
Simon?
We've heard a great deal about your work, in the Zechstein mine specifically.
I'm sorry, who are you?
Oh, believe me, I've just as much interest in you as you have in me, Professor.
No! Wait! Don't go!
Doctor, what's happening?
Can you feel that? Can you? The air is thicker.
Maybe you shouldn't touch the shell.
You're quite disturbed by me, aren't you, my unusual friend? This game is at an end.
We are playing. You and me. I like playing with you.
If you play with the dimensions of my ship, you won't just destroy this part of England. You'll destroy the Earth's solar system.
Big Finish, for the love of stories.
So today our special guest is a now producer, was actor, but also an amazing writer, Mark Wright. Thank you for joining us, Mark.
Well, thank you for asking me to join you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, well, like I say, it's looking very sunny and lovely where you are. So where are you in the world?
I am in Halifax, West Yorkshire. The setting of Gentleman Jack, the Sir Anne Jones television series, and also Happy Valley, starring Sarah Lancashire, and also Last Tango in Halifax, starring one-time master Derek Jacobi, and Nicola Walker, Levchenka herself, Nicola Walker. The last series filmed just down the road from me here, and I was wandering down, I was walking into Halifax. I was listening to an episode of Not Stranded, of the previous Eighth Doctor Strand, and I had Levchenka and the Master, the Derek Jacobi Master, in my ears, and I was walking past a church in which Nicola Walker and Derek Jacobi were filming. So that was a strange moment of synchronicity. So yeah, a lot of TV shows filmed around here at the moment. So
it is a beautiful part of the world. There's been several times when I've been in the UK. I've gone up to the area and York and the Dales, and there's so much to do, and great walks and just beautiful land.
That's about where I am. So so that's where I am. Do excuse me, I do have a coffee.
Enjoy. I will be drinking as well. So it's early morning for you. So drink up and stay awake. That'd be good.
9:30. I've been up since 6. So because I go out and walk the dog and get ready for the day's work. So yes.
Excellent. So you want to tell us a bit about where you grew up? And my understanding is that originally you were probably more an actor than anything else, but you've moved into other things. So where did your creative juice come from?
For a long time, I wanted to be an actor. I did a lot of youth theatre as a kid in and around Halifax. I was very dead set on going to drama school, but I was always better at writing during school. I displayed, I was noted as a good creative writer. And so I did I grew up in Halifax, doing a lot of youth theatre. Very difficult to go to drama school in those days to some extent because everybody was focused on the big drama schools in England, RADA, Lambda, places like that. And so it was very difficult. My parents didn't have a lot of money. They worked for Rowntree Mackintosh and Nestle making chocolate. And my dad very much said, we can't afford for you to go to drama school, so don't even audition. So I left school, worked for a few years, and eventually went and did a drama degree at Salford University. But the degree mixed acting with writing and production, so directing short films, theatre pieces, that kind of thing. So I gradually kind of migrated towards writing more than acting, and I realised I was a better writer than I was an actor. And I had a lot of friends who'd come out of drama school ahead of me who were finding the business very difficult. It's a very difficult business. And I have a lot of friends who are actors and work with a lot of actors at Big Finish. But I have friends who are actors who have been plugging away in the industry for years, and they keep doing it because they need it that much. That thing of what Patrick Troughton called all that shouting in the evening with theatre acting. They need that in their lives, and it drives them in a way that it never drove me. But writing became something that I found I could do, and there were routes that I could take to become a journalist in the first instance. That was my route.
In terms of your generations, I think you're much the same sort of age that we are. So we've talked to a number of people who are sort of a generation above you, and a lot of them all started in terms of acting with rep theatre because England had a lot more rep theatre. By the time you were out and through drama school, was that something that was starting to end?
Not at all. Rep had gone well long before I even entered drama school. I think certainly in the 90s. So I went to university very early 90s and rep theatre. And a lot of the course that I did was very focused on screen acting, television acting, because we were very close to Granada at Salford, because Salford's up in Manchester. And so very focused on screen acting with a lot of theatre, but the major drama schools, even today, focus a lot on classical stage acting. And so people coming out of drama schools without that screen training, how to stand in front of a camera, how to hit your mark. But I think the tide has turned there. So it's very much about, screen acting and technique, camera technique, hitting marks. But really acting was something that by the time I started appearing in, little cameos in Big Finish, I was very much a writer and not an actor. I was just around at the time Big Finish started. I lived very close to Gary Russell, so I'd just pop in and do the odd line. Although my very first involvement with Big Finish was as an actor. So I don't know when I stopped being an actor and became a writer, but I never had any professional acting engagements outside Big Finish.
So had you known Gary through Fandom?
Yes, I got to know Gary through Fandom. Very early 90s. There were various conventions. There was a convention I got involved in called Exospace that took place in Exeter. That's the very first time I met John Ainsworth. I was the chief steward in the merchandise room, and he was selling the audio visuals cassettes. That are very much the precursor to Big Finish and, established a lot of what you could do with Doctor Who audio drama. And that's where John and I first met. And John and I have worked together so much since then on Blake 7. We edited Doctor Who The Complete History together, and I still work with John on other projects that I do now that are not even audio drama. So that's when I first met John, and Gary was around. Gary was doing interviews for us then, but I'd met Gary before then, and we became really good friends. So by the time I moved to London, I was living 15 minutes walk away from Gary Russell. And Big Finish was gearing up. So it was all part of that kind of late 90s, early 2000s of when Big Finish started up, 99 with Sirens of Time. So I was very much in fandom. I drifted away from fandom while I was at university, and then kind of slowly drifted back to it in the late 90s, really.
So how did you first get into Doctor Who?
Watching at home with my parents, latter end of John Pertwee, very early Tom Baker. And my earliest memories of Doctor Who are, I think it's Death to the Daleks. I like to think Doctor Who fans have, there are stages of how you remember Doctor Who. You remember a sense of it, you remember specific pictures, and then you remember moving images. So I think it goes from having a sense of it around the beginning of season 11. I remember the Daleks view, a Dalek view in Death to the Daleks, moving through some rocky, and so that's kind of one of my first picture memories. But I think my first moving, and then Planet of the Spiders, I remember the spiders on their plinths. And then my first moving picture memory is the Doctor and Harry and Bessie driving past the giant robot and throwing the Kettlewell virus over it. So that's kind of one of my very first, and the Doctor throwing the ball bearings under the robot's feet. So that season really imprinted on me. I'd have been 3, I think, when that season went out. So it was very much a part of our growing up. Myself and my brother loved Doctor Who, but it imprinted on me in a way that no other program did. So it was that kind of that mid-70s trailblazing era. Those three Philip Hinchcliffe seasons are probably my, very much my imprint of Doctor Who. But I really became a fan with the Peter Davison era. That's when I kind of very consciously thought, I am a Doctor Who fan. And the 5 Faces of Doctor Who season that was shown here, I think a lot of my generation in this country became fans because of that series of repeats. They were amazing. So by the time Castro Alva came around, I was very firmly in. I was a Doctor Who fan. So Peter Davison is my favourite Doctor. Very much so. And so to get to write for Peter, and then a couple of years ago produce a box set that he was in as the Doctor, that's the joy of Big Finish for me, that we get to work with our childhood heroes.
Had you been writing back then?
I started writing I was writing my own Doctor Who stories in tatty exercise books, finding how, trying. I was a good writer at school. I was noted as writing at school. And that era, season 19, was when I started writing my own Doctor Who, proto fan fiction, I suppose it was. I don't have any of it. There's probably an exercise book floating around in my dad's attic somewhere. I was very imprinted by that, and which is odd because I think possibly some of the writing that season was not the greatest, but it was very atmospheric, and I loved that TARDIS crew, and I loved what Peter brought to Doctor Who. I mean, being honest, during season 18, our family drifted away to watch Buck Rogers on the other side. So I didn't see a lot of season 18 at the time, which is funny that that's the point where I was just on the cusp of becoming a Doctor Who fan. But that season largely passed me by. Buck Rogers was far more exciting. So it just Doctor Who became a bit too dry for a 9-10-year-old kid, where you want monsters who do cool things, not accurate. You don't want accurate scientific gobbledygook. You want inaccurate scientific gobbledygook with monsters who do really nice things. So that was my feeling. But since then, I've gone back to season 18, obviously, and I realised what a masterpiece it was, and there are some of my favourite stories there. So it's funny how we develop and our taste develop as we become older. But it's that period where I very much started writing, yes.
It's funny you say that about Buck Rogers, because I've recently got the Buck Rogers Blu-rays and just started watching them only in the last couple of months, actually.
Right.
And I remember from when I was that age, I would always get the opportunity to watch Doctor Who because it was on in Australia every day.
Yes.
But Buck Rogers on once a week, and usually conflicting with something else a parent or family member wanted to watch somewhere else. So that's a series I never got to watch as much as I wanted to. But yeah, it's a very different beast, isn't it, to Doctor Who?
It was, and it came off the back of that Star Wars buzz, and from Star Wars to Battlestar Galactica. And I think in a lot of ways, Buck Rogers was the replacement for Battlestar, because that didn't really land in America, and all that special effects expertise that had been set up on Battlestar that came from Star Wars with the whole court cases, because the Buck Rogers starfighters were an original design for the Viper from, that was one of Ralph McQuarrie's original Viper designs from Battlestar Galactica, which I wrote a book on last year. So it was that. It was very glitzy, and for a 9-10-year-old, that was much more exciting than some of what Doctor Who was doing there. So it's an interesting time, and Buck Rogers didn't last. It was very glitzy, very gaudy, but very exciting. But I go back to season 18 now and realise how wonderful it is.
Yeah, the first few episodes aren't bad, and you just watch it decay over the season, and the second season is just shocking.
Like Wilfred Hyde White in his cardigan.
Yeah.
Oh, Buck, my boy. Yes, and Tweaky with a different voice for a couple of episodes.
Yes.
I don't know what that was about, but yes. So, yeah, interesting times, but it was that kind of, that very, my Doctor Who love was forged in the mid-70s and became a lifelong love in the early 80s. I never looked back, really.
Now, you're saying when you left uni, you became a journalist? So how long were you working as a journalist for?
A good decade. And I would still class myself as a journalist in some ways. My main ongoing job at the moment is I edit the Doctor Who figurine collection now, which I took over at the end of last year. So I edit the magazines that go with the figurines. I started as a journalist in 1999. I worked for Future Publishing in Bath. That's where I met Cavan Scott for the first time. We were kind of put together. Cav was already working at Future. I left my job in Manchester. I was working on the backstage tour at Granada Studios. So I was kind of tour guiding on Coronation Street. I had a job in a call centre. And a friend suggested that I maybe moved down to Bath and got some work experience on a couple of magazines, which eventually led to a job on a magazine called T3, which was a technology magazine, boys' toys. Cav worked on that mag, but we'd met before that. A friend had said, "You both want to write Doctor Who novels. I should put you together in a room." And that was the beginning of mine and Cav's, decade-long, a little bit longer, writing partnership. So, I worked on T3. I became reviews editor for a DVD magazine when such things were needed, when DVD was new. So I moved from Bath to London. And then I eventually ended up on a soap opera magazine. I worked on All About Soap magazine for 6 years as the chief sub-editor, so making sure that everything fit nicely in the columns and nobody was going to sue us. That was always the thing about that. So I worked there for 6 years. A lot of Doctor Who people were working in the same company. Gary Gillett, formerly of Doctor Who magazine, was next door on Inside Soap. He was the deputy editor. I've known Gary for a very long time. I brought my friend Ian Farrington in, who was the production assistant at Big Finish for a long time. Ian left Big Finish and came to join me at All About Soap. He became my deputy and then eventually took over from me when I left. So I was working exclusively in magazines for a good decade. 6 years at All About Soap. And in that time, that's when me and Cav were writing a lot for Big Finish, and I started writing bits for Doctor Who magazine as well. So there was this really enjoyable period of people working in magazines who had taught themselves how to do magazines through doing fanzines when they first came into Fandom. And so we all had a great time. And first Thursday of every month, you'd go down to the Fitzroy Tavern at the other end of Oxford Street. And it was a very, very enjoyable time. And this is when the show wasn't on air as well, so there was a sense of, I don't know, it became something we did. I don't think there was a sense of keeping the flame alive in any way, but people were just enjoying writing these stories that were getting turned into audio dramas or writing for Doctor Who magazine, and it just being, a really fun, memorable time where I made some of the best friends in my life in that period.
So how did you and Cav come to write together? And
Cav and I met in 1999 in Bath. Our friend Stephen O'Brien put us together in a room. It was already known I was going to be moving to Bath, and so we'd been in touch before that via email. And the first night I met Cav, we went out in Bath in a group. We both stayed over at our friends, and we sat up late talking. And after that first night, we had the working idea for what became our first pitch to BBC Books for a novel. We came up with an idea that we did. We pitched it to Justin Richards at BBC Books. It didn't go anywhere, more because he clashed with an audio that Big Finish had coming up. It was set in Pompeii, and the fires of Vulcan had just been commissioned. And so there was a sense of... Justin was very clear to, he had some concerns about the writing, but that was solvable. He said more of an issue was the fact it would clash with what Big Finish were doing, but to come back to him with other ideas. So that opened the door at the time. And it went from there. Cav and I became, the best of friends, and we became a writing partnership. And the first thing that we did together was a short story for Big Finisher's Bernice Summerfield collection, The Dead Men Diaries. Big Finish was relaunching Bernice with a series of books and audios, and The Dead Men Diaries was the first short story collection. They were open to pictures from writers who hadn't had anything published before. I was living with Paul Cornell at the time in Bath. I was Paul Cornell's lodger, and Paul was editing that collection with Jack Rayner. And so me and Cav took Paul out for a Pizza Hut buffet lunch and pitched the idea that became Christmas Spirit. It may have been Christmas Spirit. Oh, that's so long ago. I mean, that's 22 years ago, nearly 23 years ago. So it's all lost in the mist of time. But yeah, that was the start of it. We wrote that story together. And then very quickly after that, Project Twilight happened, which was our first Doctor Who audio drama.
Doctor Who, Project Twilight.
What have you done to me? What is this place?
Don't worry. No one will find you down here. We're quite alone.
Why are you doing this?
I need you to take some special medicine for me. Problem is, whenever I've done this in the past, the patients struggle and scream in horrible agony and cause me all sorts of problems. So all these restraints are really for your own good.
Have I missed the leaving?
No. We were just getting to know each other, weren't we?
Please.
Reggie, pass me the syringe. Thank you. Now, Mr. Deeks, I need you to be Amelia's brave little soldier.
Oh, you can't.
Because this is going to hurt. A lot.
Vampires?
Don't worry, we won't bite.
So can you describe the process? How do you actually write with a partner? Because most people can't actually work with someone. How do you two work together? Or how did you work together?
Well, yeah, because we don't, I think I should say that we don't write together anymore, not through any schism or anything. It's just the way our lives have developed. But Cav and I are still the best of friends. A lot of people have said over the years, have you had a falling out? And it's just like, no. Cav was best man at my wedding. I'm godfather to his eldest daughter. So, we are still very much the best of friends. It's just that our respective careers have gone in different directions. And so it starts to become more and more difficult to link up to do joint projects. The way we used to write, we got commissioned for our first thing. We've never lived in the same town when we've been writing together. I left Bath for London, and we got the commission for the first Beneath Summerfield short story after I moved to London. Before then, we both lived in Bath and Bristol nearby, and we got together. We had a once a week session where we got together and tried doing some writing. We would work out the outlines between us. We would knock them back and forth. One of us would take responsibility for working up a first pass of an outline, and the other would do a pass. And that's how we wrote the scripts as well. Once the outline was approved by Big Finish or whoever, we would then divvy up sections of the script. With an episodic Doctor Who audio, it's easier to delineate the work. So for something like Masters of Earth, the Sixth Doctor Dalek one we did, I wrote the first 2 episodes, Cav wrote the second 2, and we swapped them backwards and forwards. The other person would do an edit pass on the episode that the other had written, and vice versa. And that always worked really well. With a novel, the Blake 7 novel we wrote, again, the outline, and we just divvied up chunks. If there's anything that we fancied writing, we would divvy up that chunk. And the Blake 7 novel didn't go chronologically. We would go, oh, I fancy that section, and then I'd do another section, a couple of sections further on. So it worked out like that. So it was a bit of a patchwork, really. But when you were doing an episodic, so The Eternal Battle, I did the first half, Cav did the second half, episode 1, episode 2. And that kind of made it easier to work, I suppose. And we just passed things backwards and forwards. We had a very close working relationship, just in how much in contact we were. But very few times we've actually written in the room together, which I think is interesting. A lot of it's been done online, via emails. I think The Prisoner of Peladon, the Companion Chronicle, we wrote some of that in the same room. I remember the 2 days before my wedding, we both sat down in my house and went through an edit of Masters of Earth. That was 2 days before my wedding. We were just, we've got to get this done because we've got to be somewhere else for me to do a big thing in a couple of days. But generally, some of Church and the Crown was written when we were together. But generally, all those things that we did, Whoology, one of the other big things we did, the book, that was written, in isolation from each other. So yeah, it's an interesting thing to consider. But that's generally how we did it. We would just pass things backwards and forwards and trust the other one to make certain decisions. And there can be no recriminations. If somebody cuts out something that you're a fan of, you can't look back on that. You've got to just keep moving the script forward.
So are you able to tell who wrote what?
I don't think so. John Ainsworth always used to say that he couldn't tell who'd written what. When he got a first draft from us, he couldn't tell who'd written what. So, and it seemed to be that we kind of found the same voice, and that gets smoothed out in the edits as well. There's things that I think I possibly remember, certain lines of dialogue that ping for me now if I listen to something, but generally, I just consider them as they're a joint entity, really. So I don't, but it's interesting that John always used to say that he'd get a draft from us and he said it's seamless. You can't tell who's written what.
So 2 of the early books you did with Project Twilight and also the Church of the Crown are 2 of the ones probably held up amongst the top 10 of the best Finnish productions. I'm
not sure. I think we kind of sometimes we slide down the list. I mean, I don't think about things like where you are in the greatest lists. I think we were kind of, I think Twilight possibly stands up, and Church of the Crown is probably my favourite of all the audios that we've written. Certainly Doctor Who. I think it's the one that works the best. It's very different to any of the others. It's not sci-fi. It's not monsters. It's very different for us. And I was the one that pushed for us to do this because I'm a huge fan of the Richard Lester Musketeer movies,
right?
Which we steer very, very deeply into in Church of the Crown, I think. In fact, I think there's probably a couple of gags lifted wholesale from it somewhere, and given the Doctor Who spin. But it's very nice of you to say that they're up there as as Big Finish, top 10s, I suppose. I sometimes think that some of what we do doesn't, things like Spare Parts and Chimes of Midnight quite rightly take a lot of, get a lot of the plaudits. Just above all, I was just very pleased that we were part of the early days of Big Finish, and those pioneering days, I suppose, that kind of set the foundations for where Big Finish has gone today, I think.
So from Doctor Who, you started doing some Iris Wild Time. How did Iris come about?
Iris came about because Cav and I were installed as producers on the Tomorrow People. Nigel Fairs, both me and Cav had written solo Tomorrow People adventures. Nigel Fairs was stepping down as producer. We were going to write the story for his final season. We had a meeting in Brighton where Nigel lives to talk about the scripts for this final season. And then we said, what are your plans for, does Jason have plans for carrying on, Jason Haig-Ellery? And I said, no. And they said, would you consider us as potential replacement producers? And so it was decided we would take over as producers on the Tomorrow People. It would be our first producing gig at Big Finish. And we had scripts commissioned, we had a season planned out, we had writers in place, outlines in, and then the license was pulled by Fremantle because it was going to America. The series was going to kind of start again in America. So, which was a real shame. We were absolutely gutted because I think they were good stories. Joe Lidster was doing one, Ian McLaughlin, Cav and I were going to do the opener and the closer. Yeah, it was good stuff, I think. So when that went away, Jason came to us and said, actually, I'd like to do more Iris Wild Time. What do you think? And we just went, yeah, great. Because we knew Paul Mars as well, so we were able to get in touch with Paul and say, Jason wants to do more audios. And so it went from there, and we came up with the idea for the first 4 that we did that they would reflect a particular era of Doctor Who. So the first one, very much a 60s base under siege story. The second one was Iris, exiled to Earth, working for Meow. The third one, very much an 80s kind of set where monsters come back. A monster from the first story came back, because that's what monsters did. And then the last one was a very, very cheeky riff on the TV movie, which was originally given the title of The Enemy Within. And then we were told, maybe let's not do that because we don't want anybody over in America going, hang on a minute. I like to think that the Panda Invasion takes place at the same time as the TV movie. It does. The date is, at the beginning. So, and it brought us into the orbit of Katie Manning, who has become a great friend in the years since. I adore Katie. We've worked together a lot. We are possibly about to work together again on a completely non-Iris Wild Time project, which will probably be announced in a few months. It was just an outrageous time. And you got the chance to write comedy as well.
It were in the Prince of Wales just before closing time when my best friend, Panda, finally decided what he wanted for his birthday. I've dropped my glass into the very workings of the engine, which means I've spilled gin directly into the space-time vortex. And nobody's supposed to do that. He said that he wanted me, Iris Wild Time, trans-temporal adventurous and all-round glamour puss, to take him to the biggest, happiest party in history.
And on the West Coast, the focal point for New Year's celebrations will be the Golden Gate Bridge. To see in the new millennium, San Francisco will play host...
San Francisco, New Year's Eve, 1999.
I assume that glittering bauble outside the window is what I would normally call a bad thing?
We've opened a multi-dimensional rift. I can see 2 of you. Oh, Panda, help me. I'm seeing double.
Okay, nurse, what do we got?
Jane Doe found unconscious by the cops outside some old red bus downtown.
Allow me to introduce myself. I am Lionel Pando, at your service.
This is an outrage. You look just like me.
It's difficult to keep track.
Why don't you just lie back and take it easy? You're in good hands now, miss.
So I can see. I'm Iris, by the way, so please, do stop calling me Miss.
Okay. Iris, I'm Dr. Strangeways.
Now, all I want to know is how this bus brought the two of us together.
I won't talk. I've had special forces training.
Did you see what it was?
It was fluffy, but with sharp teeth. I mean, fangs. It was a
panda.
Now, we need a vantage point. Somewhere central. Ah, there. The perfect place to look down upon humanity and witness this night of pandemonium.
Wait a minute. It was a savage toy panda, and you killed it with tonic water?
Festivities well underway. Event organizers would not confirm or deny if the sudden appearance of a strange object on top of Golden Gate Bridge
Big Boss! Right on top of the Golden Gate Bridge!
I shall bring all the entire multiverse pandas to me, and with my new army behind me, we shall conquer this planet and flush humanity from the toilet bowl of existence.
Bat-winged flying pandas from 5 million years into the future and 3 dimensions to the left. I've seen those things decimate entire planets. Poor things are getting out of hand, even for one of my misadventures.
It is a far, far better thing that I do than I have ever done.
You can't destroy me! Take that! We are brothers!
No! Panda! If I'd known what was going to happen, I'd have told him to shove it.
Cav and I we didn't write one for that first season. We just acted as producers, and then we suddenly decided to commission ourselves to do a Christmas special, to steer into modern Doctor Who and do a Christmas special. We just emailed Jason and went, "Can we do a Christmas special?" He went, "Yeah." And we did 2 more box sets after that. And so I think that they're some of the most fun times that we've ever had as producers and script editors at Big Finish. And we got to work with Katie and become friends with Katie. And she's a force of nature, one of my favourite people in Doctor Who. But at the same time as Iris Wildtime, there were things like Highlander and Robin Hood happening in the background. Big Finish had got the license to do Highlander audios. Cav and I are massive Highlander fans, so we worked as script editors with Sharon Gosling producing. So we did those. And then Cav and I were originally working on Robin Hood together. Cav had to step away, so I took Robin Hood forward. Sharon Gosling again produced. I script edited and directed 4 of those. And there's 6, I think, the Robin Hoods, which have just come out again digitally as a digital box set. They're just straight down the line audiobooks, and I think they really stand up today. I mean, the first time I've only directed 4 things for Big Finish, 4 Robin Hood audiobooks, and the first time I was in the studio, I was directing Richard Armitage, who was coming through a big TV name at that time. He was just on that. He was doing Spooks. He'd come off 3 seasons of Robin Hood. You knew he was going places. And we had a fantastic time. He bashed 2 10,000-word audiobooks in a single day, which is some going. And Sam Troughton did the same. John Ainsworth directed the 2 with Sam. Amazing. And I think they really stand up. I had a fantastic time doing those and learnt a lot doing those audios, and it was really lovely to see them come back again, to have a second lease of life, and just being in studio with actors like Richard Armitage, Jonas Armstrong, and David Harewood, who's gone on to incredible things and was doing incredible things then. We had a day in studio with David, and it was a privilege, to think I've directed these actors was a real privilege. So I'm really proud of the Robin Hoods, really proud, and I'm glad that people have been able to find them again. They've come back.
So from there you moved on to, you're writing Doctor Who still, you did Companion Chronicles, etc. But then the Graceless series was the next thing you scripted and produced?
Yeah. Came about from being at Gallifrey 1 back in 2009, that would have been. I think Key to Time came out at the same time as Gallifrey. I think it was the January, February, March releases that year. And I went out with Simon Gurrier. Me and Simon, we had a bit of a road trip to Vegas and San Francisco and back for the convention. Laura Donington, Kira Jansen were both at Gallifrey that year, and the idea of a Graceless spin-off effectively came out of that because we all got, I mean, Simon's been a great mate of mine for a long time, and we got on really well with Kira and Laura. Simon had written the first of the Key to Time audios, and it just seemed a good idea to do. And Jason was very, very happy for that to go ahead. And also Lisa Bauman coming in as director, that was always part of the plan as well. It was very much designed as a project for us all to take on. In some respects, I wish we'd done more regular box sets, that we got a momentum going, because we did them every few years. But that also, I think, helps it that each box set becomes its own thing, and the time, we did them when the time was right. And after Series 3, that was it. Simon thought, I've got no more stories to tell about Abby and Zara, so let's bring it to an end. So Series 3 was the final season. But we'd had such a great time doing them. And again, I was learning about producing and script editing. And we just had a great time in studio, and brilliantly seeing Kira and Laura become great friends behind the scenes, and which really, I think, helped the material, helped the audio material. Their relationship in the stories was strengthened by their friendship behind the scenes. So we had an incredible time doing those. And then we got the call after a few years, we want to do a fourth one, which we didn't expect. But Simon, at that point, thought, I've got new stories to tell. I think a few people were unhappy when we announced new casting for Abby and Zara, because we had, in the first story, it was a bit of a cheat. We had Sian Phillips and Annie, I forget her name, which is terrible, Annie Furbank, who were brilliant. They played older Abby and Zara. I mean, you're working with Sian Phillips. I've seen Annie in so many things as well. A few people online were a little bit upset that we'd recast them, but we had to say very quickly, Kira and Laura are coming back for the last 3 episodes, because we did 4 stories for that one. They're coming back for the last 3, don't worry. Which then became the final box set, Wicked Sisters, which I do think is very much probably the final Graceless box set. And that was my first time producing a full-blown Doctor Who release for Big Finish.
From Big Finish Productions, Doctor Who, The Fifth Doctor Adventures, Wicked Sisters.
You have encountered the gods known as the Grace?
The Grace are pan-dimensional beings, not gods.
The Grace are dead, murdered by their creations. Abby and Zara have destroyed whole worlds. When the Grace challenged them, they turned on their creator. Now they threaten all of time.
Tell your acting president that I don't do assassinations.
They must be destroyed!
No! Is that... Oh, no. Him. We've lived whole lifetimes. Oh, there's so much to tell you.
Smoke, dark smoke, in the shape of a person.
I can't see anything. No, wait.
Leela, I don't know where or when they are. It could be anywhere.
Out there! A spaceman!
Not a spaceman! That's a Sontaran!
Hope? Hope is no match for planning and strategy.
I'm Captain Rhea Nero, and you're on my vehicle without prior consent.
Commander Stent, if I might have your full and total surrender.
Abby and I, we don't always get it right, but we try to use our powers to help, because everything else makes us monsters.
There's something wrong with the vortex! Because we scarred it with our powers!
We will feed. We will feed.
For all their clever arguments, they delight in using their powers. We have to stop them.
I don't know how we stop them. But you're right. This has to end.
Big Finish. We love stories.
Wicked Sisters is brilliant in terms of how it brings in Leela and the Fifth Doctor and the clashes there, and it's very muddled, but in a really fascinating way.
Yes, and that was deliberate. And Simon's idea was that it would have to be with the Fifth Doctor. That's how we'd have to bring the story full circle, because that's where Abby and Zara's story started, and that Leela, because of her involvement with the Time Lords, could be involved as well. It's funny. I think it's also that. People online saying, "Oh, Leela's in far too many box sets," but Louise is brilliant, and secondly, Leela earns her place in the story. You couldn't have done that story with another companion, because Leela has that very different view of the universe to the Doctor, even though she has, she was the noble savage who was educated, and that she still has a Seventeens view of the universe, and would say, "Doctor, you've either got to tell them to stop or you've got to destroy them." Only Leela could have made that pronouncement to the Doctor, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it works. And we had great time. We had Dan Starkey came in to play Sontaran on the second story, which was great because we had Dan giving Peter and Laura lessons in how to speak Sontaran, because they have to become like Sontarans because they're with them for so long. And so, we had Sontaran school in the green room with Dan giving them. But we had just brilliant casts on those as well. Anjali Mahindra on that one as well, who's just brilliant. We're so lucky to do what we do and work with these actors. And Wicked Sisters was recorded December 2019, and that was my last time in a studio for 2 years. I remember we were talking in Green Room about, this virus in China. It was the last Big Finish production in studio before Christmas that year. It was there was a real end of term feeling to it. It was, things were winding down. We were all going home for Christmas. And then that was it for 2 years. I wasn't in studio again until November last year for the first Doctor Adventures. So it's quite a thing, really. I've been in on some remote recordings, but not to be in studio. So to do that was a delight.
Can I jump in there and pick up on something that you mentioned briefly a couple of times, but you've mentioned what people are saying online. Do you pay much attention to what people say online, or because it can be a pretty depressing place
More
sometimes?
than I should, and I'm learning not to, because I realise that you can't change people's opinions, and they'll say what they want to say about it. So I just avoid certain forums. I just don't go on forums now. I'm not on Facebook anyway, so I don't see things on there. People have a right to have the opinions that they want. Sometimes I feel they're expressed in ways that are not particularly pleasant, but that's the nature of the beast. And if you take the good reviews, you take the bad reviews as well. So it's best just to avoid everything. And I think if you do start to pay too much heed to what's said out there, you start to second guess what you're doing and creating. And so it's part of the territory. And the best thing to do is to just step away from it, and you make decisions based on your instinct about what's going to make a good script, what's going to, in editing a script, what's going to make. You just have to do it for yourself in a way and trust your instincts. And that's what I'm learning to do, I think. But in the past, I have taken things to heart. And I think that way madness lies. You've got to shrug it off. And get on with doing it. At the end of the day, I get to be in studio with Doctor Who, and we have a lovely time, and we have great actors in working on what I feel are great scripts. And I get to have that experience with these other people. It's a creative collaboration, and that satisfies me. I don't need that validation online. It's sometimes easy to get sucked down that rabbit hole and get despondent about it when some people are being, I think, unnecessarily unpleasant about things. But it is what it is. And I think you just have to shrug it off and not pay heed to it and not expose yourself to it in the first place. So I think that's my view on that now. I've learned through some hard lessons that you just have to just put it over there.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. Last year, I think it was last year, or was it the year before? You were part of a group. So there was yourself, there was Heather, Dominic, Emma, a group of new producers that were announced as these exciting new bunch of producers.
Yeah.
And I had a sense at the time that, they're sort of gearing up to hand over the baton. Everyone's going to start retiring who I've been listening to for the last 20 years. So it was exciting, but it was kind of like, also for me, it was like, it has been a long time that's been going now, hasn't it? But what was it like to be part of that new bunch of producers that are coming on with all these new exciting projects?
I think I felt a little bit of a fraud in that group because I'm an old soldier, really. You know, I've been part of the Big Finish furniture since, the 20 odd years. So I kind of felt, see my face grinning out of that press release on a picture that's a little bit older than it probably should be. Really, that's a headshot I had done years ago. It's really nice to be part of that and to be acknowledged in, that outward facing part of Big Finish. And, and I'm just getting a great deal of delight seeing, friends like Emily Cook coming in. I worked with Emily for a very long time at Doctor Who magazine. Emily was our editorial assistant on the Doctor Who Complete History part work. So I've worked with Emily for a very long time. So I was delighted to see Emily coming into this world. And Heather and Dominic are doing incredible work as well. They're real boons to the company as well. So it brings a new energy into the company, I think. And that's great to see. And, both Heather and Dominic are, I call them forces of nature. They just go for it. And I love seeing that energy, and I love seeing the energy that they're bringing through the company and these releases. It's great. It's great to see. So I felt slightly that I was a little bit of a fraud being in that group, really. This old man kind of grinning out of that press release. But no, I love it. And, Heather's just a natural. Heather is a complete natural at this, as is Dominic. And I think it's lovely to get these visible fan faces in there. I love seeing Dominic's Twitter account and his cosplay, and he's just amazing. He's amazing. They're all amazing. We're very lucky at Big Finish. We've got a really talented creative pool of producers and script editors who are just so committed to it, and it's lovely to be part of that.
So you've been handed the first and the second Doctor. So
yes,
taking them forward, and of course there's been some big announcements with the first Doctor release about to come out. What role did you play in terms of the casting of the new Doctor?
Very much part of the discussions of who we were casting. Stephen's name came very quickly as a recommendation from Mark Elstob, who did audition for us as well. And he said, he said to Nick, he knows Nick really well. He said, I want this role, but it would be remiss of me not to mention my friend Stephen Noonan, who does an absolutely blinding rendition of William Hartnell. And Nick, we needed to hear what he could do. So I prepared various audition scenes from the series. I kind of lifted those. I think we did the speech at the end of The Brink of Disaster, and we did some dialogue scenes as well. So the Doctor and Dodo arriving at the beginning of the War Machines, the Doctor in the cell in the Gunfighters, the Doctor's speech at the end of the Massacre, just to try and cover a whole range. And we'd had scripts. Scripts were ready to look at by that point. The Outlaws had certainly been written to a point where I could give Stephen scenes to read from that as well. And he did his audition, and he blew us away. We thought, we've definitely got something we can work with here, and we offered him the part. And to Stephen's credit, he gave it some thought. We had to work on him a bit because he thought it was a big thing for him to take on. Stephen's a supremely talented actor. He's classically trained. He's done so much theatre, but he's also an enormous Doctor Who fan as well. The conversations we've had, sometimes over a couple of hours on the phone, talking about nothing but Doctor Who, but not even touching anywhere on the first Doctor. or anything. He's so steeped in Doctor Who, so he knows it. But he's now become so steeped in William Hartnell as a person, as well as the character of the First Doctor, and I think that's crucial to what he's done in his preparation for the performance. It's been a joy to see it develop. And, I know recasts are contentious with some people. You're either going to like a recast, or you're either okay with recasts or you're not. There seems to be no middle ground. But I feel that if you're doing it with the spirit of the original character, with some reverence and respect to the original actor, but also with a bit of room for your own interpretation a little bit, you've got to bring your interpretation as an actor to this role. It's a character. Then I think you can't, you go forward like that. And Stephen's performance for me as the Doctor it's a living, breathing thing. It's got texture. It's got the ticks and clicks of the First Doctor. It's got the twinkliness. It's got the grumpiness. It's got the humour. It's got the forthrightness and the anger. And that's what I love about him. And I hope when people hear these adventures, when they come out, they're just going to be taken along with it. And along with Lauren Cornelius as Dodo, I think we have a superb Doctor companion team here. They're so great together. Lauren's incredible. She just goes for it. And Lauren has the slightly easier task of playing a character that had very little definition on screen. From story to story, the characterization and the writing is inconsistent. So she has a slightly easier task, but that doesn't diminish what she's done in bringing this energy and this adventurous spirit to it. And Lauren and Stephen click so well together. So, and literally today just signed off the final elements for the release. So we're ready to go, and it's there, waiting to be released into the world. And by and large, people have been really positive and saying how much they're looking forward to these.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm thrilled.
It's interesting. Like with in terms of recasts, like if we don't have recasts, we're not going to get the stories, aren't we? That's the only way we can get these full cast stories is if we do recast, because unless someone knows something I don't. But let me tell you what my reaction was to the trailer, because there was some interesting reactions. We're talking about people's reactions online, and I'm sure you probably took a look at some of those too. But my reaction was, when I saw how it was being done like a telesnap reconstruction, with that sort of very trebly kind of sound. My initial reaction was, oh, that sounds a little bit strange. And I kept listening, and by the time that sound pulled away and it went into the full proper studio sound, I went, there it is. I can hear it now. And I think there were a lot of people just listening to that first bit. But what they don't remember is a lot of these fans have probably had the access to William Hartnell on vid-fired DVD and things like that. Whereas I remember the days when I first saw William Hartnell stories on 10th, 11th generation VHS. That's exactly what he sounded like.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This is it. We forget that. And I think, I love that trailer. I thought Nick put that trailer together, and I thought it was very clever. And also bringing a little bit of the miniaturist in at the end as well, which all sorts of brilliant theories about the miniaturist, which I've loved reading. Yeah, I'm fiercely proud of what we've done with this first box set. I wanted to commission stories that were traditional and some stories that were edgier and out there, that sideways step. I talk a lot about that in interviews for the box set. But above all, I think we have a blindingly good actor playing the Doctor and a blindingly good actor playing Dodo. And we've got a bit of a blank canvas to go forward with new adventures for this team. To see Stephen just grow in his confidence on the first recording day was just lovely to see. And by the time we got to the Outlaws, we recorded The Miniaturist first, which is a really technically heavy script. And so we really kind of dropped him in at the deep end. By the time we get to the Outlaws, he was just flying and throwing in his own Billy Fluffs, and which all work and just enrich the performance. no recast is ever going to be a carbon copy. It's never going to be a perfect recreation. But we're talking about, with the first Doctor, a Doctor who has been recast more than any other Doctor.
Yep.
You know, there have been other First Doctors. So this isn't a new progressive thing we're doing. This has happened before. And
even while William Hartnell was still the Doctor, he was recast as Peter Cushing.
Yeah. Yes, you know, so this isn't something new, I think, and I think the recasts of, you know, I mean, Tim Treloar and John Culshaw are amazing. I've written for both of them, and Daisy as well, and Sadie as Sarah, and Chris Naylor as Harry. They are imbuing it with the spirit, you know, because, you know, certainly with Sadie, you know, she just has her mum there, but it's her own thing as well. So I think they're tricky to do, but I think done with the right spirit and a little bit of respect and a little bit of room for a personal interpretation, I think you're onto a winner, and people will enjoy the stories.
Now this is Lauren Cornelius's second time as Dodo, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We cast her specifically for the First Doctor Adventures, and then it was decided, we've got this early adventure coming up, so why don't we?
Oh, so she was already cast by the time.
She was, yeah. We'd already cast Lauren as Dodo for us, and then we thought, well, we have her, so let's use her. And I think it's been clever, you know, talking the Second Doctor Adventures. I think Nick did a clever move by bringing Michael Troughton into the Annihilators, the last Third Doctor adventure, because again, it just acts as a little curtain raiser. It removes any uncertainty anybody might have about what Michael's going to do, and so it gets people used to things in another area, because Tim Treloar had done stuff as the Third Doctor as well in other things, and that I think it just allows that room to breathe. So, you know, we're in studio very soon with Second Doctor Adventures, and I'm again looking forward to the reactions there. We've got a couple of great stories. I would say that, but I think they're of the era. But with the Second Doctor, we're moving into that. You know, it's called Beyond War Games. I won't go into a great deal of detail about what we're doing. I think the title says it. Yeah. It's, you know, we've said very much this is post-war games, so which again allows you to have a little bit of fun and to do some things that you might not expect. And I've loved doing it. I've loved collaborating with Nick. You know, Nick's directed these and been very much part of the process. And I've known Nick for a very long time, but this is the first time he's directed things I've written, but this is the first time we've worked really closely together on projects.
What does it mean for visual actors like Peter Purvis and Carol Ann Ford and Fraser Hines and Wendy? Are we expected to see them? What's the likelihood?
That's not a question I can answer. Really, that's above my pay grade, I think. So I think that's kind of something that, you know, Nick and David would have thoughts on, and I'm sure there are plans. But my brief is to produce Second Doctor Adventures, First Doctor Adventures. You know, First Doctor with Stephen and Lauren, Second Doctor with Michael. And that's all I can really say about the Second Doctor Adventures at the moment. So no, that was absolutely my brief, was Stephen and Lauren and the First Doctor Adventures in stories set after. So that's very much our TARDIS team for this range at the moment. That may change in the future. I don't know, but I think it's following a narrative thread across the box sets. Although the First Doctor doesn't have an arc. It's just this was a chance to introduce our new Doctor and Dodo to the audience in two of the era stories, I think.
Well, listen, Mark, thank you so much for your time. There's so much more we haven't talked about. We haven't discussed your Blake 7 work yet. We haven't talked about all sorts of other things that you've been up to, the Vienna series and other things. So maybe at some stage, maybe before the second Doctor box set comes out, we might be able to grab you quickly. Yeah, I would love to come back and have a chat with you. I do tend to waffle on quite a lot. So well, it's been all fascinating. So no waffle. Just it's been so engaging. And as I said, I could easily go for another hour. But recognising your time.
And you guys probably need to get to bed as well.
Oh, no, that's fine. Once again, thank you so much for your time.
No, thanks, guys. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Quite a section of Mark's interview when we're dealing with the Forge, because we're going to slot that into a Forge special that we're going to do in the next month or so, looking at all of the Forge stories. So if you're going, they didn't talk about the Forge much, well, that's why. You're going to get a lot more from Mark on the Forge very soon. So, as far as recommendations go, you're not going to believe this, Philip, but it's your turn.
Really? My turn?
It is.
Well, there you go.
I know, strange as it may seem.
I'm going to recommend something that I only just got to listen to. I'm a bit behind in trying to keep up with all of the stuff that we're trying to listen to at the moment. And I finally got to the Annihilators.
Excellent.
It took me a long time to get to. And it's fantastic.
It's wonderful, isn't it?
I could not believe how good it was. And once again, all the people complaining about the recasting, Fraser Hines is the only person originally in it. And he does have a huge role, mind you, but it is just sensational. The storyline is great. It has some great twists and turns. A 7-part poetry story. It's just the ideal number of episodes. It made me laugh. But the way it keeps building, the way they introduce different characters along the way, the different settings. I don't want to give things away because I think it's really worth listening to. But if you haven't listened to the Annihilators yet, if you're one of those people who's a bit nervous about recasts, I think this is a good one to jump into. We're not told what's going on with the Second Doctor. We're not told what's going on with Jamie. Obviously, we're going to find out about that when we get to the Second Doctor box sets later in the year, in terms of, because James is older, and how does that make sense? I don't know. I mean, I've got some ideas. I think I know what's going on, but who knows? I might be totally wrong.
Oh, it's all tied in with the 2 Doctors as well.
Yes, possibly. Anyhow, we're going to find... Oh, is it?
It has to be. Doesn't it?
I don't know. Maybe. Anyhow, we're going to find out. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going on. But Annihilators, marvellous. Worth getting. Now, what about you, Dwayne? What are you going to recommend?
I'm going to recommend a BBC audiobook this month. I think it was released last month, or was it the month before? Nick Briggs reading Revenge of the Cybermen. They're doing a fantastic job on these audiobook readings. They're just going from strength to strength. So I haven't heard it from start to finish. I know Revenge of the Cybermen is a story that is very close to Nick's heart, and he would have loved doing that one. So I can heartily recommend Revenge of the Cybermen from BBC Books. Grab it. It's excellent. All the music, the sound effects, all the enhancements that go with these audiobooks now make them so much more than just a standard audiobook. So, definitely grab that one.
I fully agree.
Okay, that'll do for this instalment of the Sirens of Audio. Been great to have your company, Philip, and it's been great to have your company too, wherever you're watching or listening from. So we'll catch you next time.
Bye, everyone.
This has been the Sirens of Audio, episode 104, Outlaw Producer, with our guest Mark Wright and your hosts Philip Edney and Dwayne Bunny. Theme music by the Jackpot Golden Boys. Contact details, links to our podcast and video locations, social media, and much more can be found at sirensofaudio.com. Send us some audio feedback via anchor.fm/sirensofaudio. Drop us a line at sirensofaudio@gmail.com, or drop a comment if you're watching on YouTube to give us your thoughts about a podcast or the latest audio drama you've been listening to, and we'll share it on a future episode. So keep spinning that audio drama, because audio drama